Constitutional amendment. President Bola Tinubu urges lawmakers to consider the incorporation of state police. INEC releases an amended schedule for the 2027 general election. Opposition political parties in Nigeria raise objection on certain provisions in the new Electoral Act 2026, demand fresh amendment to the Electoral Act, just as INEC upgrades the beavers to detect fake results. Our interview segment will focus on 2026 off-season elections and the gale of defections, one which happened this morning. We have these and more on political update. I'm Fisayo Ogufui. Welcome. President Bola Tinubu has charged the National Assembly to commence consideration of the constitutional amendment in order to incorporate state police towards securing the country better. President Tinubu was speaking at an interfaith break of fast with members of the Senate in the State House. The President of the 10th Senate, Godswill Akpabio, led the senators to the presidential villa in the course of the week. The President acknowledged the commitment of both arms of government, the executive and the legislature, to the progress, success, development, and prosperity of Nigeria despite the challenges which the country faces, including insecurity.
We are facing terrorism, banditry, insurgency, but you never fail to make a right response to these calls. What are we asked for tonight is for you to start thinking how best to amend the Constitution to incorporate the state police for us to secure our country, take over our forests from marauders, free our children from fear.
The President appreciated the collaboration between the two arms of government on reforms of the administration.
I have a lot of credit for both reforms. Without your collaboration, without your inspiration, those reforms are not possible. We are reformists together. What we gave up and what we stopped is a monumental corruption in subsidy. We gave it up. We don't want to participate in monumental corruption, in arbitrage, foreign exchange. You don't have to chase me for dollars. You could see what Nigeria is today. You should be proud. And I'm glad you are proud of this moment in time. What we are enjoying is stable economy, prosperity beckoning on us. We just need to work hard.
President of the Senate assured the President of the loyalty of the Senate and the corporation, just as it says members of the Senate will remain united irrespective of political affiliations in the interest of the nation.
We are happy with you. We will continue to remain loyal. We will work with you for the good of this nation because we know you mean well. I want to thank you for even the reforms that you have brought to bear. And the reforms, you did not bring them through any other group, except this group, the National Assembly, particularly the Senate. Everybody thinks there is no problem in the Senate. We sometimes disagree in closed session, but when we come out, we are all smiling. Most of the time is to let people know that Nigeria's interest is uppermost.
Also, in the course of the week, INEC says it has upgraded the Beavers machine, that is the biovoter accreditation system, to ensure election results are transmitted and fake results will be detected. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amukwiton stated this at a meeting with resident electoral commissioners to review the FCT polls and lessons for the Ekiti and Osun governorship elections coming up later in the year.
February 21 FCT polls. Paradox of knocks and kudos. For the INEC boss, it is just testing the microphone ahead of Ekiti, Osun 2026 polls and the 2027 general election. Aminu Idris, the FCT INEC resident electoral commissioner, like a man back from a battleground, receiving pleasantries from colleagues. 4 days after the exercise, time for post-mortem of some sort. Voters turnout 15%. Beavers behaved well. 90% of results uploaded to IREV, but challenges also noticed. Action taken.
We have identified some of the staff in Kujeria Council and Kabusa Ward in the municipal that caused logistic delay, and have directed that they should be queried. In addition, the transporter that caused some delay in Kwali Area Council will be blacklisted.
E-transmission of election results has made an entry into the 2026 electoral law. INEC still going for more perfection for confidence building.
We have introduced some safeguards to the Beaver system, which is to curb all manner of manipulation on the results that will be transmitted to IREF. The presiding officers are required to, 1, capture and upload an image of the completed Form EC8A to the INEC IRF. They should also enter the scores of each political party directly into the Beavers device. And this Beavers system, through this process, performs internal validation checks to ensure it was not there before. But the Beavers now has the capacity to perform internal validation. So any result manufactured from anywhere will not go this time around.
New electoral law. Will there also be a new date for the 2027 general elections?
We have to make some adjustments and issue a revised timetable for the 2027 general election.
2 steps down the I table, another function waiting. That is the swearing in of resident electoral commissioner Chukwuemeka Joseph Chukwu, representing Abia State.
And just like Bill Gidi alluded to there, just a couple of days after that meeting, a day exactly after that meeting, INEC issued a new timetable following the repeal of the Electoral Act 2022 and the enactment of the Electoral Act 2026, which introduced adjustments to the statutory timelines governing the pre-election and electoral activities. The Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, has reviewed and realigned the schedule to ensure full compliance with the new legal framework. Accordingly, the Commission resolved that the Presidential and National Assembly elections will now hold on Saturday, the 16th of January 2027, while the governorship and state houses of assembly elections will hold on the 6th of February 2027. And of course, a lot of political parties will be looking at that to also adjust their timetable. So joining us is public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide, you've been watching from the sidelines what has been happening. Of course, INEC telling us now what will happen. So we're opening 2027 with elections. Jide.
Thank you very much, Fisayo. Happy weekend. I'm not surprised the INEC chairman has hinted that there was going to be an amendment to the timetable that was released on February 13, and that happened yesterday night when it uploaded that there is now an adjustment. And this adjustment was occasioned by the amendment of the Electoral 2026, which has now reduced the number of days for notice of election from 360 days to 300 days to accommodate our Muslim brothers who complained that the period that was earlier scheduled for the 2027 election coincided with the Ramadan fast. Even though I took an exception to this, given the fact that as we have experienced this year, it's not just the Muslims that are observing fast, even Christians are observing fast. Assuming without considering that this is a constitutional amendment that has put date for our elections in the constitution, will the people of faith be insisting that the constitution have to go and be altered? We had in Ghana, when I went to Ghana in 2008, that election that brought Professor Jonathan Means as the president was held on a Sunday. The Christian community in Ghana did not, because of that, complain. They adjusted and brought their service to Saturday. We have seen Premiership football, European football goes every Saturday, whether there is fasting or there is no fasting. And I don't think that because there is a fast, then people of faith will not be able to participate. After all, even the last general election, from what I read, happens during the Ramadan fast. So what has changed? What occasion that we now have to observe elections? We now have to adjust backward the date for election. But it's been done. At least there is now peace. Let's now work towards it. But what I've seen with the new electoral calendar is that it has now shortened the time for us for INEC particularly, to get the work done. The luxury of time is no longer there. Remember, this election now has been brought backward by more than a month, from the initial February 20 to January 16 now. The one for March 6 has now been brought to February 6. So that means that even in terms of nomination, party primaries will now happen in April, and then, of course, campaign will start in August, September. And so everything is now tight. And look at the political parties who are just having their congresses. Like APC is having its congress now. A couple of other political parties are having their congress. They need to speed up things so that their political structure will be fully on ground ahead of the party primaries in April.
All right, let's, of course, before the big one, there are two off-season elections this year, Ekiti and Osun states in July. You are looking at some of the things that have happened now. We've seen what happened, what played out in the FCT elections, and some of the challenges as well as that the INEC chairman referred to, and what INEC is putting in place to make sure that there will be no recurrence, especially in terms of late arrival of materials. Now, looking at the off-season elections, which will be a precursor, of course, many people will be looking at that ahead of the general elections, which you have just spoken about. What should the political parties be taking away from them? Because now it's as if they are doing everything, in quick succession, and they need to prepare for the off-season elections. Two of them are before the main one. What should they be doing now, and what are the areas that you want INEC to do to perfect ahead of those off-season elections, of course, which in some cases could even show us if the election management body is ready for the big one?
So if you look at the electoral 2026, and I did write about it in my column in the Punch newspaper here on Wednesday, trying to educate Nigerians about some of the salient points in the electoral 2026. For political parties, they now have to use either consensus arrangements or direct primaries. And I have objection to the use of consensus, because it's tantamount to imposition of candidates in terms of implementation. But if they feel that is the best way to go, given the window that has been given them, so to speak. But they should understand that there will be implications when you overuse or when you abuse the use of consensus option. Just like when the options were limited to direct and indirect, most political parties use indirect party primary, in which case there are allegations of inducement of delegates and all of that. But now that they have removed everything that has to do with indirect and left only consensus and direct primaries, they need to fast track everything in order to ensure appropriate due process in the implementation of these party primaries, which we now hope in 2 months from now.
All right, but in terms of operationalization, I'm talking about even those off-season elections. Are you satisfied with what you're seeing running off to these elections in those 2 states? Are we hearing much of campaigns at the parties on ground, or are we just going to wait until those days and then we'll start complaining again that the police that are available are even more than the voters?
Well, I'm not satisfied. I came back from Ekiti and Osun in the course of this month after a scoping mission, and I will tell you for free that, well, Alex said they are ready and all of that. We have had those assurances before, but look at what happened last Saturday in the FCT area council election, where by INEC's own admission, the voting only started in 45% of the polling unit as at 8:30. For 55%, election only started between 8:30 and 10. And that's not what INEC promised. So this over-promising and under-delivery, I don't know. We thought we are done with that under Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, but it seems like Professor Josh Hamilton has inherited that, and he will have to find a more creative solution.
All right, you just mentioned, but I would just like you to take on some of these things as we close, but we need to take another very important thing before we let you go. We were just talking about issues of direct primary and affirmation, or, in terms of what the party processes are concerned. And some, opposition party members have said this is out of the purview of governance. It should be left to the political parties. They met yesterday and raised objections. They even want the group of opposition under the banner of leaders of opposition political parties in Nigeria. They've demanded fresh amendment to the Electoral Act. Let's hear from them, and then we'll come back and look at some of those issues.
Vice President Atiku Abubakar, 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, some former governors, some former and present serving members of the National Assembly, 2 political parties leaders, the national chairman of the ADC and NNPP, Senator David Mark and Dr. Ajuji Ahmed, were prominent amongst other opposition political leaders. In a position paper presented by the national chairman of NNPP, Dr. Ajuji Ahmed, the group said opposition parties in Nigeria want to speak with one voice. They expressed dissatisfaction with the new Electoral Act 2026. The areas of concern include the amendment subjecting political parties to conduct only direct and consensus primary election. The opposition parties say such provisions amount to meddling in the internal affairs of political parties.
Indirect primaries have been the most democratic of the tribe, provided in all the past electoral acts.
What is the problem with transmitting results instantly? Why is it a difficult issue?
Opposition leaders in their separate remarks say they will explore possible constitutional means of seeking redress.
And we must succeed to make sure that we restore true democracy to our country. Everybody has to come together.
The called on other political party leaders to close ranks with them in the struggle to deepen the nation's democracy.
Meanwhile, the presidency has responded to some prominent figures, those you saw on your screen there, opposition figures led by the ADC and NNPP on the views they expressed on certain issues, including the Electoral Act Amendment Bill of 2026 signed into law by President Bola Tinubu. The statement further explains that the National Assembly has done what is right in reflecting the stakeholders' views on the risk of technical failure that could invalidate the entire election. Contrary to the views of the opposition, which the presidency regards as misleading, and the new Electoral Act signed by President Tinubu, the presidency says is a significant improvement over the repealed law, closing loopholes that could be exploited for manipulations. Jide, here we are.
Well, I'm really very surprised at what the opposition leaders are doing. It should not be my way or highway. This Electoral Act was debated through consultations and all of that for 2 years. The only major contention has been electronic transmission of results, which Senate, in fact, had to vote on. And when they did vote, only 15 senators supported having that section 60 sub 3 without a proviso. 55 senators said there should be a proviso. So in a democracy, Fisayo, the minority will have their say, majority will have their way. So this whole issue of getting to primary method and saying that both consensus and direct primary is unacceptable to them. They cannot force their own will on the majority of their colleagues who are in the legislative assembly. That's why it's a democracy. Democracy is a game of numbers. If majority says this is the way we want to go, then minority will have to abide. Otherwise, the options left to them is to go to court. As I said on several media platforms since yesterday, they have the option of going to court to seek whether some of the sections in the Electoral Act could be invalidated. This happened in 2006, if you remember, when the Conference of Nigerian Political Parties went to court to challenge Section 90 of the 2006 Electoral Act that talked about sharing formula for public funding for political parties on a prorated manner. And the court agreed with them and said it's not in sync with Section 228C of the Constitution. So they can go to court, but to think that the National Assembly that is already preparing for election will now come and revisit an electoral act that is about to be gazetted, I don't think that will happen. It's an overreach, and it's within the bounds of reasoning. So I do not support their call for another amendment of the Electoral Act until maybe after the general elections.
Time is not our friend, Joe, but very quickly, another governor has jumped the ship. Governor Ahmadu Fintiri is the new signing by the APC in the transfer window. He has stated that he has defected from the PDP to APC. Fintiri made the announcement this morning during a meeting with the State Executive Council. It was muted, it was expected, but this is the reality. PDP down to 3.
Well, PDP down to 3, APC down to 30. So the 3 and 3-0. So it's a game of number. What goes round comes round. Remember, there was a time that PDP also had about 28 governors ahead of 2015 general elections. But APC have taken the shine out of that with 30 governors in its kitty during this transfer window. And APC and PDP being reduced to 3. And ADC is yet to even attract any of the defecting governors, which has made them to be. I think ADC needs to have an introspection. Why is there no serving governor? Even my governor in Osun State did not deem it fit to defect to ADC. It has to go to a court party. And that's why I think the leaders of ADC needs to have an introspection. Why is it that no serving governor, despite the defection from July 2025 to date, no governor that have defected in that timeline has ever looked the way of ADC. But it's not yet something we can conclude until when the elections, particularly when the party primaries are over, and then people are seeking alternate platforms from where they initially contested for primaries.
Thank you, Jido. Your time is not our friend. Many thanks for your intervention today. And you are still on the NTA, in the NTA club, so you are not moving anywhere in this transfer window. That has been the program for today. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back again next week. Between now and then, play your politics for the greater good and keep it locked on the Nigerian Television Authority for the latest in political news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.